Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman was born in Long Island, New York. He only had 5 or 6 years of formal education, but he was largely self-educated by reading the classics of Western literature. In 1855, Whitman published at his own expense the first edition of Leaves of Grass, which included 12 poems, including the longest, most influential piece in the American Transcendentalist movement, Song of Myself. This poem was not viewed in a high sense to the American public, but instead is looked down upon due to the fact that it mentions death, nudity, and very vulgar ideas.
Henry David Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau was born in Concord, Massachusetts, and he went to Harvard. But he was considered as a failure because he was a Harvard graduate, and he still did not pursue a proper pathway which the society inflicted him to choose. He wrote a book known as Walden, which was a 2-year stay on the shore of the Walden Pond in Massachusetts, where Thoreau lived a simple life. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson was born in Boston, Massachusetts. He was the founder of a transcendentalist movement and is considered as one of the most influential literary figures in American literature. He also went to Harvard and was a Unitarian minister.
Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was an American poet, short story writer, editor, and literary critic who was born in Boston, Massachusetts, again around the Transcendentalist movement. His parents died at a very young age, allowing him to mature at a rapid pace. He is given credit for the emerging genre of science fiction and the inventor of the detective fiction genre.
Minstrel shows. Minstrel shows were a 19th century form of entertaining in America, with white performers in blackface presenting stereotyped impressions of black American folk culture and playing banjos.
After the War of 1812, during the upsurge of nationalistic thought, American painters went from human landscapes to romantic mirrorings of local landscapes. Portrait painters were in competition with the new invention of a crude photograph known as a daguerreotype. This was created by a Frenchman named Louis Daguerre in 1839. The art of painting continued to be handicapped. There was a lack of wealthy people to sit and pose for pictures and to pay for them. Painting was starting to be seen as unnecessary, and Puritans dubbed it as a sinful waste of time. Nevertheless, competent painters emerged. Thomas Cole was born in 1801. He is often called the father of the Hudson River School of Art. In 1826, he helped to found the National Academy of Design in New York City. Cole was apprenticed to a Callio designer and wood engraver in England before he came to the United States with his family in 1818. The rest of his life, he spent much of his time sketching from the nature in the Catskills, White Mountains, Adirondacks, and the coast of Maine. He painted the Oxbow in 1836. Was born in 1816 in Germany, but was brought to America as a child. He was notable for his famous historical painting, Washington Crossing the Delaware, which was painted in 1851. At the age of 25, he had earned enough to take himself to Dusseldorf for a course of art study at the Royal Academy. Almost immediately, he began painting historical subjects and continued this throughout his life. George Caleb Bingham was born in 1811 in Piedmont Country in Virginia, where he remained until 1819, when a turn in fortune forced his family to move to Franklin, Missouri. After studying at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, he moved to Washington in 1840, again to paint portraits. He returned to Missouri for the 1844 presidential election campaign of Henry Clay versus James Polk. His paintings displayed current political situations and his love for the country. He painted the country election in 1852, and it is one of his most famous works. Winslow Homer was one of the most well-known artists to come out of the Civil War. Homer was born in Boston, Massachusetts on February 24, 1836. At 19, Homer was apprenticed to a local lithographer, and his drawings were soon appearing in the illustrated periodicals of the day. In 1859, he moved to New York City to study at the National Academy of Design, supporting himself by contributing drawings to Harper's Weekly. In 1861, Harper sent him to Washington to sketch Abraham Lincoln's inauguration. His illustrations depicting battles and camp scenes appeared in Harper's throughout the war years, but his work was concerned with the intimate moments of camp life and human interest. He painted The Veteran in a New Field in 1805.
1800s, music reflected what was most important in society, religion. Examples being church hymns and other forms of prayer using music, such songs as Here's an example of an African hymn. During this time period, a lot of classical music also migrated to America from Europe. A cool fact, do you know the song Jingle Bells? James Lord Pierpont wrote the song in 1857. The song was meant for a Thanksgiving program at church in Savannah, Georgia, where Pierpont was an organist. The song was so well accepted that it was again sung on Christmas Day, and since then become one of the most popular Christmas carols.